Hi guys, so back with me on this fifth video about teaching method that is going to be useful to be used in teaching English as a foreign language to many people. Especially this video is intended for uh, the English club that is going to be held this semester, perhaps in this 2020. You're right. So we've learned about many teaching methods so far, four teaching methods: audiolingual method, community language learning, comprehension approach through total physical response, and then the Suggestopedia. And now we're on the fifth teaching method called silent way. The tutors still need to teach their students, but in a silent way. Oh, how is that even possible? That sounds weird. Well, let's see the explanation given by Dr. Diane Larsen-Freeman on the book that we are using. Okay, I'm going to share screen again, and I'm going to show you the documents. The document that we are using about silent way teaching method. Right. Okay, sorry, I need to go. Okay, yes, silent way. So why is it said silent way? And why is it called silent way? I mean, can you teach while you are silent? So basically the concept, the extreme concept is like that. Just like teaching should be subordinated to learning. So learning should be in a higher position with teaching. It means that it it strongly demands the students to learn, and the role of teachers to teach should be very much decreased in that sense. So it says here, teaching should be subordinate to learning. It means learning should be more powerful, more influential, given more attention, given more time than teaching. Number two, language is not learned by repeating after model. So model is not very much needed in this case, that the teacher does need to model how to use the language. So they are there just to facilitate. In case there are questions, the teacher is there. Students need to develop their own inner criteria for correctness. So this is quite dangerous in my opinion, because the correctness rate is given absolutely to the students. How do they know it is correct or not? They are still learning, am I right? Well, that because this method relies heavily on the student's role. It means the students themselves need to find which term is correct, which term is not, which language is used, which language is not to be used, and so on. And that brings us to the third point, that errors are important and necessary to learning. Well, everyone makes mistakes, and everyone in learning usually make errors. And of course they are important and cannot be avoided, because I don't know anyone who is so perfect that never makes mistakes. I believe that all humans do mistakes, and they are necessary for learning. They are necessary to learning. They are necessary for us not to be repeated in the future, to make us better and better every day. And the last point, it is the student who should be practicing the language, not the teacher. Well, although this sounds very clear, very obvious, but not many teachers realize this, that sometimes the teachers emphasize on, oh, you should practice this one, you should practice that one. You know what? By the end of the day, the one who does the practice, the teacher. The teacher discusses the answers with the students, and the students find some mistakes. And actually, the teacher also thinks about the questions and explain that the answers are this one, and this one. You know. So, in the silent way, almost everything is put on the learners, but not everything. Okay. So it says here that the teacher bases his lesson on what the students are learning in the moment, not what he wants to teach them. This is quite strange because the logics behind it is very much opposite to the concept of curriculum. The school has a set of curriculums, learning objectives that are set for the students, and the students are taught by more knowledgeable others, like teachers or their supervisors, and then um, to achieve the objectives. But then here it clearly says that the teacher bases his lesson on what the students are learning in the moment, not what he wants to teach them. Okay, how does it apply in the practice? So the video by Donald Freeman. So ladies and gentlemen, Donald Freeman is a very well-known guru in teacher education, and he is very good. He's teaching in University of Michigan, which is one of the best university in the world in teaching, in pedagogy. Right. So I want to emphasize here that the teacher respects the intelligence of his students and gives only what help is necessary. So here they just supervise in a kind of passive way. Just sit there, look at the students, uh, learning by themselves, just like librarians. If you have question, you ask me. You come here, you ask me. If you think you have enough, you go back to your place. You learn whatever you want to learn, and that's it. I don't know. It's quite strange, but sometimes we do that. Sometimes we need to do that. We need to ask. Well, we cannot let go of everything to the students, but we can say, all right, students, the topic today is simple present tense. It is up to you to use any materials that you can find in the library, on the internet, and by the end of the day, we're going to have a test, for example. It's like a silent way, but of course, you still answer questions in that manner, right? This is an interesting quote that I read as well, that in fact, the teachers were fond of saying the teacher works with the students while the students work on the language. Wow. The teacher, the tutor works with the students, with your English club members, and then they themselves work on the language. This is similar to the concept of learning takes care of itself. That is more or less similar to the Suggestopedia, or but the Suggestopedia emphasizes on the positive thought of learning, positive motivation to achieve success in language learning. But learning takes care of itself is like more like a community language learning in that sense. Very close. Well, quite close. Okay, you may have noticed that on the video, the teacher spent a lot of time working with the students' errors. Errors are important and necessary to learning. So the teacher gives feedback, perhaps, and they show the teacher how the students understand what he is teaching, and especially where things are unclear. So it's basically like questions and answers session. So teaching is intended to be, I don't know, consultation, yeah, counseling, learning, yeah, just similar to the community language learning in that sense. And then the teacher used a variety of tools, hand gestures, charts, the blackboard, and the students to get the students to self-correct. Self-correct, it means it requires a high level of awareness of mistakes and awareness of knowledge. So in practice, if you teach your friends in your English club, you may give a certain degree of freedom, but I would say you give them directions like objectives and direction. If you like this method, silent way, you don't do much basically, and you just give directions and ask them to perform, and that's it. I mean, it sounds like the teachers do not teach at all. Well, it's quite correct, but the teacher is still there for answering questions. Okay? If the students are simply given answers rather than being allowed to find the corrections themselves, they won't retain them. So it requires efforts from the students to look for the correct answers, look for uh, the possible alternatives that they might think better or more correct in that sense. Okay? At the beginning, the teacher expects students to progress, not perform perfectly. So yeah, you cannot expect students to do their things by themselves and they can do the activities perfectly, but they, of course, they need to progress. That's the silent way, basically. In the technical sense, the teacher is there for answering questions, basically, and you give a certain degree of a high level of freedom for the students to look for materials, to comprehend the materials themselves, and with their friends. I don't know whether this can be applied in Indonesia in general because it will be chaotic in that sense. Or some may do this, but I'm not a fan of this technique. But if you like this method, you can put it in your teaching later on, definitely, because everyone has their own favors in their ways of teaching. Right, so this is the fifth video. We are going to the last video and we are going to wrap up what we have. And after this, I hope that you can differentiate between the similarities and differences between these six methods, and then you can, from the summaries that you've written from each method and your own reflection on the techniques that you're going to use, you can write a well-written lesson plan. You can consult with me, and then you can do your own teaching that I'm asking you to do for 10 to 15 minutes. Okay. Right, thank you so much. We're going to meet on the last video, in the last video, about communicative approach. The approach that is so popular, it was popular in 1990s, since the, the, the year 1990 in the States. But Indonesia, it gained its popularity in the year 2000-ish. It means that we are kind of 10, 20 years left behind from the American education. Well, at least we are trying to do our best, right? Thank you so much for listening. So